What factors lead us to be attracted to someone? Here's a short list of just some of the variables that predict attraction between two people. We'll cover each of these at some point in this lecture. First, rewards. We tend to be attracted to people with whom a relationship is rewarding. 2. According to evolutionary psychologists, survival of offspring. We're attracted to people with whom the survival of our offspring is more certain. Also, proximity, familiarity, physical attractiveness, similarity, reciprocity, and playing moderately hard to get. Let's examine each one next. Proximity is the best predictor of attraction. We're more likely to affiliate with the people who live near us, who go to school with us, who work with us, who are in physical proximity to our location. For example, several studies have found that college students are more likely to date people who live nearby than those that live farther away. Familiarity is also a good predictor of attraction. The mere exposure effect occurs when we come to like a stimulus because we're exposed to it often. For example, we prefer our parents, caregivers, siblings, and friends over people we've only met a few times. Here's how it works. If you're exposed to something that's pleasant, the cognitive system assumes that it's reasonably safe. The next time you encounter that person, you will like them better than you did the first time. That is the cognitive system's way of telling you that it thinks the person is safe. Interestingly, we do not have to be aware of the exposure for it to work. Marketing and brand recognition relies on this effect. The more we're exposed to a product or brand, the more we prefer it, over products or brands that we've never been exposed to. This is why companies spend so much money showing you products that you already know exist. They don't want you to forget about them. There's plenty of evidence that we're biased toward beauty. We tend to react more favorably to people who are physically attractive than to those who are not. Why might this be the case? Social psychologists theorize that individuals experience rewards when in the company of attractive people, rewards like attention and feelings of awe and admiration. Another explanation is that we tend to think attractive people have other desirable qualities, which is called the "what is beautiful is good" stereotype. Is it accurate? In some ways, yes. But in other ways, no. Attractive people do tend to have more friends, better social skills, and a more active sex life. But they aren't always more intelligent. They don't always have pleasant personalities. They aren't always well-adjusted, and interestingly, they don't always have higher self-esteem than people who are less physically attractive. Longitudinal studies have not found much support for attractiveness in young adulthood, predicting happiness in older adulthood. Why might this be the case? One reason is that some physically attractive people discount praise they get, and they don't internalize it. For some, they're not able to discern whether the attention and recognition they receive from others is due to their talents or good looks. It's important to note here that what is beautiful is relative. Different cultures perceive different features to be beautiful. Let's tackle the issue of objective versus subjective beauty next. Let's assume for a moment that we can measure beauty objectively. Some evidence suggests that certain facial features are more attractive than others. Youthfulness and symmetry, for example. Furthermore, people across ages and cultures tend to have high levels of agreement when they rate these facial features. Even babies prefer faces that adults consider to be attractive. Here's an example of how social psychologists measure facial symmetry. This is a photograph of Angelina Jolie, who is known for having one of the more symmetrical faces of the celebrities tested. What they often find is that participants unknowingly rate photos of symmetrical faces higher than non-symmetrical faces. Now let's assume beauty is in the eye of the beholder, that what is beautiful varies from person to person. Supporters of this approach point to history, noting that the definition of beauty has changed over time and from generation to generation. It also varies across cultures and contexts. And people from different cultures enhance their beauty in very different ways. Here's a photo array from a non-scientific, informal study done by a journalist. The author surveyed people all over the world about the beauty standards of their culture, and the results are depicted here. This provides some informal support for the subjectiveness of beauty. Now let's move on to the next variable. We tend to associate with befriend, and marry others who are similar to ourselves in demographics, attitudes, physical attractiveness, and subjective experiences. Also, supporting the matching hypothesis, people tend to initiate romantic relationships with people who are equivalent in physical attractiveness. In other words, birds of a feather flock together. There is little support for the complementary hypothesis, or the notion that opposites attract. But it can and does happen. It's just not as likely as birds of a feather flocking together. Let's take a look at how the similarity effect works to impact who we affiliate with. First, we tend to avoid interacting with people who are dissimilar to us. Of the people who are like us, we tend to be drawn to those who are more similar to us versus those who are low in similarity, and we continue to interact with them. Most people prefer psychologically balanced relationships. This means we like to get out of a relationship what we put into it. Reciprocity is a mutual exchange between what one gives and what one receives. Liking is mutual, which is why we tend to like others who indicate that they like us too. The final variable we'll consider is the selectiveness of the other party. Despite what online forums and our friends say, playing too hard to get can backfire. We prefer people who are moderately selective as opposed to those who are non-selective or too selective. And we tend to be turned off and not attracted to people who reject us. Now that you're familiar with the factors that build attraction between people, you'll learn about intimate relationships in the next video.